For more, I want to bring in Lindsay Chervinsky. She's an American presidential historian and executive director of the George Washington Presidential Library. Lindsay, it's often said that Carter redefined the post-presidency. How did his approach and turn to humanitarian work differ from what we've seen from previous presidents?
Thank you for having me. He absolutely did redefine what it meant or what was possible for a former president. Typically, former presidents went home and they tended to keep a low profile. And while he certainly stayed out of traditional politics, he committed himself to the real concept of what it meant to be a public servant and was dedicated to whether it was eradicating disease, building homes, trying to help establish peace around the world. These were things that a lot of former presidents didn't typically put their hands into. And whether that was work through the Carter Foundation or quite literally picking up the hammer himself, these are not things that Americans were used to seeing presidents do. And I think it opened our eyes to the possibilities of that position and the power that comes with the formerness of that office.
And on the campaign trail, Carter was also known for his ground campaign efforts, which helped him to ascend to the presidency. And how did he redefine presidential candidates' approach to primaries?
Well, President Carter didn't really like the traditional political system. And so he really believed in doing things his own way. And that was true when he was in the White House. Initially, he didn't have a chief of staff, which actually turned out to be something he did kind of need. So he learned to embrace that rule. But when it came to primaries, he wasn't going through the traditional party system. He was bucking that power base and instead was going directly to the states, directly to the people. And at a time when we were coming out as a country out of the Watergate era, out of a lot of distrust of institutions and public officials, that outsiderness, that sort of normalcy that Carter seemed to offer was quite appealing.
And how does his experience in the Navy and serving overseas impact his foreign policy approach while he was in the White House?
Well, Carter was really dedicated to foreign policy and quite interested, and that's not always a guarantee for all presidents. Because he had served around the globe, he had a real appreciation for different cultures, for the importance of self-sovereignty, and for understanding that not all conflicts have something to do with the United States. So his approach to the Middle East was quite different than others before him because he wasn't coming in necessarily trying to control the outcome, but rather using his position as president to bring together people and try and find a middle ground. He also believed in the importance of our armed services and the opportunities that they could provide to Americans because they had provided them to him as well. And so he was an advocate for the military, but not necessarily in the way that we always associate a stronger military with presidents.
And how did public perception of his presidential legacy shift over all this time?
Well, President Carter, when he left office, he was seen as a failed president. He was seen as someone who was aloof and cold, not particularly accessible to the American people, out of touch with their concerns and their demands. I don't think anyone would consider him at this point to be aloof and cold. And certainly his long record of service, of trying to help people's lives, I think has gone a long way in changing that notion of who he was. But also a lot of the contributions that he made as president, things like his investment in environmental protections, his investment in civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, those things bore fruit over time and have proven to be more and more popular when they were perhaps a little bit more radical. And lastly, a lot of the decisions he made to try and improve the economy, while they were considered to be unpopular at the time, they actually worked. But his successor, Ronald Reagan, often initially got the credit for those things. Over time, I think people have been able to evaluate his contributions with a little bit more objectivity and given him more credit for some of those things.
Lindsay Chervinsky, thank you.